welcome to another episode of Steeltalk with myself, Ryan Turner, and
Jonathan Milligan, of course, sidekick.
We're here in Nashville, Tennessee at Music Valley Drive, sitting at the Texas Troubadour Theater.
World famous
Texas
Exactly.
Troubadour
Yeah,
Theater.
what a place.
With none other than Mr. Eddie Lange. Eddie,
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see
Good
you.
to see you all.
Great,
Glad you're
great,
in,
yeah.
glad you're in town.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
great to be here. Eddie, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to
Absolutely.
have a quick talk to us.
Absolutely.
A lot of people in Ireland and the UK and Europe, for that matter, know exactly who you are. They follow you, as follow your playing and Facebook, and of course, anybody coming to town always goes to the Music City Bar to hear the Playboys.
We've become not to brag, but we've become an international destination over there.
Absolutely.
I mean, Nashville always obviously has been,
Oh, it's
but
brilliant,
we've
yeah.
been privileged. We have lots of great European friends, Irish friends,
Yeah.
English friends, German friends. A couple. We did an album with a gentleman from Spain a few years ago. The Playboys did. So we're privileged that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great,
we are.
great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Eddie, you're one of the great steel players in town. I have seen you performing here, and I've seen you downtown several times. Pedal steel. Let's go right back to the very beginning.
Okay.
How did it start for you?
Well, I've always said a joke, sort of. Country music was the family business, you know. I grew up in a country music household. My dad was a bass player and a band leader, front man, and he could play a little steel.
Yeah.
But he always had great steel players in the band,
Cool.
and so I always say I'm a child of the '80s. So I had two things going on. I had the musicians I grew up around, you know,
Sure.
in my household. Who were all, pro, semi-pro
Yeah.
type musicians, which was a privilege. But also the start of cable TV and TNN, the Nashville Network.
yeah.
And so I was born right around the time that got going, and so I knew several great steel players in my local area, and then I could see great steel players on TV every night on the Nashville
Tommy
Network.
White, Tommy
Tommy
White.
White,
Oh,
of course,
my God,
I'm going
yeah.
back before Tommy. Nashville Now, Larry Sasser was a great
Yes.
staff player on Nashville Now, and of course all the other great shows they had, and the Opry on TNN. But so I think those two things sort of, I could see it flesh and blood, for
Sure.
real, and then I could see it on TV all the time, and I think that's a double-edged sword, sort of,
Very-
to get
very
me into steel guitar,
Yeah,
But
growing up in Ireland, there was very
Yeah.
few steel guitars, and
Yeah, yep.
never, let alone great players.
Sure.
Just not
Yeah, oh, it helps. Proximity helps, especially
Yeah.
with an instrument like steel,
Also,
because it's
yeah.
such a specialty instrument,
And
Uh,
YouTube, of course.
But I was around it from the time that I can always remember. I didn't start playing until I was probably about early teen years, late,
Okay.
12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. I played guitar a little bit before then, but that was when I really got serious about it.
Yeah.
And of course, then all the way through, into my teen years, and then I moved to town. I always say, if I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. but I also wish I knew more, as we all do.
Yeah.
I moved to town when I was 19,
Yeah.
and that's really young. But I also wouldn't trade that for a minute, because I sort of just threw myself into the fire, if
Yeah.
you will,
Yeah.
and I might have, could have maybe got a little more experience. I mean, I'd already been playing clubs all the way through high school and,
Sure.
and stuff, but I just jumped in with both feet and just let them have it, and,
Brilliant,
and
yeah.
so that you learn a lot that way,
Yeah.
So I'd probably only been playing steel for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years or so when I moved to town,
Wow.
and whether that's smart or not, like I said, it's
No,
hard
but
to say.
listen, I've heard stories of Dickie Overby landing to
Yeah.
Nashville and
Yeah.
not knowing how to play steel. But
Yeah.
Vern Young, was it?
Oh, absolutely.
Steel guitar.
Oh, yeah, there's
and,
lots of stories. I know guys literally who have.
What a player he turned out to be.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
When you have the love for it and the passion for it, that's the thing, as you both know. When I started playing steel, it immediately became my obsession, and I was, in the basement, locked down there, every day, after
Exactly.
school, whatever, and it became, just. And also, when you're a kid, you're a sponge, so you can just absolutely soak up everything you hear. And I, like I said, I had the great privilege of growing up around several great steel players, and then I started going to Scotty's convention, and everything that was going on back then, and the internet was just getting going then, and so you had those resources,
Sure.
and of course the Mel Bay books that Scotty wrote, Jeff Newman wrote. We all had the Jeff Newman courses. It was a good time to learn the steel, because you had access to all that stuff.
So good.
And it's only gotten better, I think. And
It has, of
and
course,
as you two know, I mean, and you're doing an international thing by you know. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, really, you know,
it's just a hobby, but it's turned out.
No, but you know, that's the beauty of social media and the internet and everything is that we're all connected now. You know, and
first class.
you know, we don't need to keep. But
it's an amazing instrument. I keep saying this every person I talk to, but
Yeah.
I don't know any other instrument that brings people together like the steel guitar community.
yeah, I agree. I think part of it is because of how weird we are. I mean, all musicians are weird anyway.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but steel players are like on the fringe of the weird. You know,
Sure. Weird.
and I think you know we have it's always been a unique people. You know, want to learn the instrument, and also we have some people to thank, like you know, like I mentioned Scotty earlier in his convention.
Yeah.
You know, he started doing that back in the early '70s, and that sort of became the template for the community. You know, having steel guitar shows and get-togethers and guys. You know.
Scotty is a bit.
You know, and he wasn't the only one. He was kind of one of the first to do a big show like that. But then it's been copied all over the world. You know, and
in Ireland we have our own Irish Steel Guitar Festival as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's and my point is because it's such a small number of guys that play it. I think those types of communities make it even more special.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's just there's a million guitar players, right?
There
A
is,
million
yes.
keyboard
Yeah,
players.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, it's true. There's a closeness.
There is.
Yeah, for sure.
Eddie, who's been your growing up and learning to play the pedal steel? Who's been your influences? And I know that's.
Oh man, I had like I told you, I had several great guys I grew up around. I grew up by Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And Minneapolis always had a really good country music scene, steel guitar scene. So when I was a kid, I had a few guys. There was a guy named Kurt Olson back home. There was Bill Rudolph who built Williams steel guitars in Minnesota. Was an early influence for me. A couple guys that worked with my dad, Dave Schmitz, son of Clem Schmitz, who was a big-time Emmons dealer forever. Al Udine, who was the showboat rep in Minnesota, was a guy. Don Saxon, he was another guy. So I had several local guys that were big influences. And then, of course, those were the guys who showed me who Lloyd Green was, and John Huey was, and Buddy Emmons was. And so, you know, just like everybody else, you know, everybody that recorded on all the music that we love, you know, was a huge influence. I've always said one of my favorite parts about living in this community is not only do you get to play with the best in the world, but you get to meet your heroes, and a lot of your heroes become your friends. And I've been blessed in that way too. That so many of the guys that I you know, we've lost a ton of them, but there's a few of them. I got to meet a lot of them before they were gone, and a few of them are still around. You know, but
You've got to back one of my favorites, Gene Watson.
which I have. I work with. You know, I never have worked for Gene. But I've been fortunate to be in a few staff band situations where I've backed him up, and you know that one thing about the timing when I got to town, I caught the very end of what I call the golden age, sort of. You know, it was just at the very end of a lot of the and there's lots of stuff around town that's changed for the better. Some stuff that's changed for the worse. But specifically, like when I started on the Opry with Bill Anderson in 2005, and or 6, somewhere there, 5 or 6. And you know, when I started there, all the legends of the 50s and 60s were all still there. You know, you know, Billy Walker, Charlie Walker, Charlie Louvin, Gene Shepard, Jan Howard, Del Reeves, you know, all the Jack Green, all the Jim Ed Brown, all of them are still there, and we got to back them all up. You know, I mean, so you know, that's something that I will always cherish. And then we have a few that are still with us. Bill's still with us. I'm still doing spots with him. Connie Smith is still with us. I'm doing spots with her. Gene Watson is still with us. So as far as the real meat and potatoes of steel guitar history, you know, all those artists are
very much so,
play a big role in that.
I think the night that I actually seen you in here, it's probably going back to 2014 or 15. I think it was Leona Williams. You were actually back in there.
Yeah, with Leona, we used to do Leona. Well, since they've started the Midnight Jamboree back up again, she's worked it.
Great.
But Leona was always a staple on that show, and we were fortunate, several of us, to get to work with her a lot.
I actually got to back Leona as well. When she came to her.
Yeah. Leona Williams is a wonderful lady. She's a wonderful lady.
That was a treat for me, to be honest.
She's a real. Leona is a real. What I call a country music lifer. You know, I mean, she's somebody who, you know, she's never been a superstar in the traditional sense of the word,
No, we know.
but for all of us who are the real diehard
Yeah.
country music people,
Yes.
she's one of the all-time great singers and songwriters, and has given her whole life to the business,
She
you
has.
know, and
Really
she's
is.
still doing it.
A life
She's still
purpose.
working the road, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Well, Eddie, I know
Yeah.
from my first met you, I know you
Yeah.
play around town a lot.
Yeah, we do.
You've toured as well, obviously.
Oh yeah. Well, and the best part for me is I don't have to ride the bus as much anymore as I used to.
Yeah.
But we all do our time,
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And I've had a few gigs over the year that have been busy.
Yeah.
I worked for Josh Turner for a little bit.
Wow.
Great.
I worked actually the first really serious road gig I did in town was with a group called the Wrights, Adam and Shannon Wright,
Okay.
who are Adam is Alan Jackson's nephew,
Wow.
and they had a husband and wife duo. They still do.
Yeah, I've seen that on there.
They still do.
Alan Jackson's show.
But they were on RCA Records for a brief time, 20-ish years ago, and we spent a whole year opening for Alan. So that was kind of our first big. As we were all in our early
That was
20s,
amazing,
and
yeah.
and it was kind of our first big taste of big time touring,
Yeah. It is,
But
yeah.
but that was fun. So I've had a few gigs like that where
Great.
you do the the
And of
amphitheater
course-
circuit in the
Of
summer
course,
and
you
all that
play
stuff.
now with Joey and Rusty, who
Yeah,
are
from
both.
Alan's band. Yeah, actually, that was
And
when
Alan's
when I
band.
first met. That was when Joey had first started with Alan back then, and that's when I first met Joey.
Yeah, with
Uh,
the Music City Playboys.
We're proud of that band. When we first started the Playboys, there were four of us. It was me and Randy Mason, and Randy actually is the only one who's been there the entire time.
That's right,
This
yeah.
was in 2007, I believe, seven or eight, somewhere in there. And Randy's been there without fail
Is that right?
from the very beginning. But him and I, and I played the original lineup was Randy and I played steel. We had a guitar player named Rick Wright, who's passed away. Rick worked for Connie Smith
he worked
forever.
for Connie Smith. I
Long
seen him
time.
here when I was here in
Yeah.
2005. Right in there.
Rick was an all-time great, in
Oh,
my opinion.
brilliant player.
Rick was our original guitar player, and we had a lead singer and bass player named Joel Van Tassel. And Joel is not around town anymore. He's up in Kentucky, married, doing great.
Sure.
But that was the original Music City Playboys.
Wow.
And I left for a little while. Rick sadly passed away. Joel, as I said, left town, and the guys came and went, and the current lineup that we have right now with myself. When I came back in the band, Rusty had replaced me, and we needed a bass player. And actually, at the time, Billy Johnson, who was another great musician that we've lost, was playing bass, and Rick was the guitar player. And Billy was a great guitar player and bass player both. And when Rick passed away, Billy moved over to guitar, and I came back and started playing bass.
Wow.
And I've been there ever since. This was about 2012, I believe. And so we had that format of me on bass and Billy and Randy and then Billy passed away. We've lost a few members sadly. But Joey came to the band. Joey was always hanging out over there.
Yeah.
And always was threatening to bring his piano and sit in. And finally he did, and he's been in the band ever since. That's our joke.
Wow, what a
So the current lineup,
great player, yeah.
the current lineup, and we had a good friend of ours, Keith Nixon, was the lead singer for a while.
I remember Keith. with you.
Yep, Keith's not around anymore. He moved on as well. John Burchett is our current lead singer, who
Great singer.
and actually Damon Gray is who y'all saw last night.
That's right.
He's our main sub when John's gone, but John's back tonight.
Damon's
And
great, too.
Damon's wonderful. So we're blessed. Of course, William Bagby, the boy wonder, if you
The
will.
boy wonder, the prodigy.
A monster player.
Yeah.
When Billy Johnson passed away, Rod Riley came in the band. Of course, Rod is an all-time great around
Yeah,
town.
I remember
too.
Rod playing with him. Nice guy.
And when Rod left the band, William, Rod was actually one of the guys that started bringing William around when he was about
Really?
15. I think I met William when he was 14 or 15, and he would come in and sit in and stuff, and he was, you couldn't believe it then.
Yeah.
And William was, I think he's 20, he has just turned 24.
Wow.
And I think he's been in the band for 4 or 5 years, and of course he's just, he's going to be an all-time great.
He is, really
So-
is. I mean,
so-
he said that last night. Actually, just watching him, he's just such a good. He's just.
So we're really proud of that band. Yeah, we're really proud of that band.
Yeah, but something we were admiring last night is
Yeah.
the repertoire you have.
Yeah.
The it's all that information. These aren't reading charts. You've got it all in your head.
Well-
you're also familiar with.
Yeah, the best part about that, we started that band because we wanted to play all the music we loved.
Yeah,
that's it.
And we've all been
Sure
friends.
do.
We've all been friends forever. And we've been literally doing it. This current formation of the band has been doing it every week for, at this point, the band started in 2007. Like I said, some of us left and came back, but this current lineup has been playing, I think, for 6 or 7 years together every week. So we've never rehearsed. There's a few things we might, if it's a brand new tune that we just started doing, bring a chart out on. But when you play, play every week, that just becomes, what you do, and you just, because we've been doing it for so long, you accumulate that repertoire,
Certainly one of the best bands around town for traditional country music. It's solid, it's tight, everybody plays well.
What's unfortunate really is that I feel I take that compliment and I'm pleased by it. I always am when people say that. But like when I moved to town, there were dozens of bands that sounded like that. That was always my thing. Is when I came to town and wanted to, really figure out where I wanted to be. That's who I was hanging around with was this kind of thing. Everybody played like that, And what's amazing is you have, our people that come into town, our friends that have, come around, several times during the year or whatever, and they all say that. Yeah. And it makes me happy that we're still doing it that way, that there's a place they can come see it. But
it's great.
We're sort of some of the last dogs, unfortunately. You have our band. Mike and Joni Johnson's band, 45 RPM, are doing a similar thing. Of course, they're wonderful. And the Time Jumpers, they are what they are. And there's a few others around town that are.
To see
Cal Jackson.
What they do on Mondays is wonderful. Of course, and it's all different to some extent. But there used to be, dozens of bands around town. I mean, this is what Broadway was like, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever, So.
Eddie, you be in Dallas. You perform at the festivals.
Yep.
Are you busy doing? Do you find that you go to a lot of those, or?
There used to be. There were 4 or 5 of them sort of regionally around here that used to happen more often, and I was doing those. Say 10 years ago, I did them all. But they're really, Scotty's went away. Dallas is still going. They used to have the Steel Guitar Club here in town. Has a show usually once a year that we all try to do.
In October, isn't it?
October, I believe.
I think it falls the same weekend as our festival.
This year, yeah.
It does.
I am going up. There's a new show. I say new. I think they've done it for a few years, but I've never played it up in Indianapolis this summer. That I'm going to go play. But they're just. I love playing them, but there just aren't as many anymore. That's why what you all are doing is a great thing.
But in Ireland now we're really pushing it. The last Steel Guitar Festival was one of the biggest we've ever had.
It's great.
So
it's wonderful.
And October come this year. The guys always try to have a player come from the States. So it's this year Steve Hinson's coming over.
I saw the poster. And he's bringing his wife.
Becky's gonna come, and she's
that's the best part.
She's great. She's gonna come.
Huge family affair, which is great.
The Hinsons are the greatest.
They are.
The two of them are country music royalty, man.
So what do you play at the moment? Is it a
Festival?
But my real workhorse guitar is, and it's the second one that Jerry built for me. Is that Fessenden guitar. You might see me around with a couple of my show buds. I've got an LDG show bud, or a Pro 2 show bud. But my real workhorse is that Fessenden guitar, because it's just that's what it is. It's a workhorse.
But it sounds great. But then again, a lot of the sound comes from this here.
True. But that guitar like that, you can get what I love about it is it's very versatile. The Fessenden guitar, what I love about those guitars, and particularly the one I play a lot, is if I want to do the traditional thing, it sounds like $1 million, and I can do the modern thing with it too. So that's really, versatility is the key when you're a hired gun.
You're also. I've heard you play the traditional country and the modern country on some of your. You're also a very fine C6 player.
I appreciate that, and especially because it seems like it's going away. And there's a few guys around, especially guys I would say who are, under 50 years old, who are playing great C6. But I know lots of guys who don't play it at all.
And I'm one of them, honestly.
Well, and I've always played both tunings. I've always wanted to play both tunings for all the right reasons, I guess you could say.
And they are somewhat different, Eddie.
Oh, of course. The one thing I will say, anybody who's watching, this is the sales pitch I always make for C6. Not that you need to be able to play it for any commercial gig you'll ever beyond,
Yeah.
you know. But it's obviously in the history of the instrument, you know, it's a very important tuning. It's also, I know lots of guys who say they're intimidated by it, when it's really a more straight ahead tuning than E9. The E9 tuning is, you know, I mean, you know, yes, our ears are so tuned into E9 and that commercial country sound, and the other styles it's used in, but the E9 tuning is essentially useless without pedals. Merely, I mean, it's literally a pedal tuning. You know, the C6 tuning was a tuning, a non-pedal tuning that the pedals were added to later.
Right.
And if you think about it, the whole tuning is just basically triads with that 6 in the middle, except for the F and the C on the bottom. The rest of the tuning is just triads. So if you know how to play any open tuning, you know, if you play open G on a dobro, open A, open E on slide guitar, whatever, that's all it is, just with that 6, that A in the middle. So there is so much you can play on that tuning even without pedals and knee levers. You know, I mean, if you think of C6 like you would the pentatonic box on a guitar, you know, 3 and 4 fret shapes, there's where all your major scale is, minor scale, your blues scale, you know, relative minors, everything is within that, you know, 3 and 4 fret place, even before you add the pedals. So that's my sales pitch. I always make the guys who say that.
That's excellent, because you know what, it's something I have steered away from. There's our local guy, Richard Nelson, who loves steel.
I know Richard. He's a wonderful player.
He always encourages you to go and try it and do it. You know, just
next time y'all sit down at your C6 neck, just look down on it and you know, take the C and F and A from the bottom out, and just start on the 7th string, and all it is just C, E, G, triad, A, C, E, G. If you have the G on top, you might have a D. Some guys have a D on top, but I mean, really, it's just if you take the bottom 3 strings out, just strum it. It's it's just a C major chord with the A, an A in the middle. You know, so it's not as intimidating as you think it is. If you just have to change your mindset from thinking the E9 tuning is very vertical. You know, because with the pedals and knee levers on 1 fret, you can play your whole major scale, all your minor scale, your 1, 4, 5 chord,
1 fret,
2 minor, 3 minor, 6 minor, all in 1 fret. So I think a lot of guys get into that vertical, straight up and down thing, you know. And,
it's excellent.
You know, so that's the major difference.
You got to think outside the box sometimes,
Well, or in the box, literally. you know, 3 and 4 frets. I mean, that's how I think of it. You know.
Very good.
Well, we have a steel set up here today, but I hope to go and see you tomorrow morning.
Yes.
You're in Legends.
We play Robert's Western World. We play. That's another group I'm proud to be a part of around town. Josh Edley and the Headliners.
Oh yeah.
And we've been that band sort of evolved too. At one time we were Monty Good and the Honky Tonk Heroes, when Monty Good was still around town. He's back in Texas now. But Josh took over lead singer duties in that band at Roberts, and we've played Monday nights forever, since Monty was still around. And in the last few years, we've had this Friday morning thing down there, and it's a great band too. You know, we've been doing that forever. We play a lot more. We play, the Playboys. I think of the Playboys as being a real straight ahead traditional country band. You know, the stuff we play: Merle Haggard, Gene Watson, Ronnie Millsap. Josh's band is more geared towards like a honky tonk thing and Western swing. We play a lot of Western swing. Josh is a great fiddle player, obviously, and then of course, your Johnny Bushes and Ray Prices.
Love that.
Like a dance band, you know, kind of. So that's it's great. I'm proud to be a part of both bands, and we do them every week, so it's fun. So,
Oh, that's really good. Can't be anything else.
Eddie, I know time's running short because you've got a gig to do.
We're fixing to go over there and do it like we do every Thursday.
Brilliant.
Yeah, man.
Listen, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Great to see you
talk
guys.
to us.
Great to see you both. I love it. I love it. I have lots of good friends in Ireland. There are so many. There's lots of great steel players. There's lots of just great country music people. As I told you boys last night, it's where it came from. That's where country music came from. So it ought to be that way.
So you'll come over and play for us sometime.
I would love to. I know I said to you that it was supposed to happen several years ago and didn't happen, and I think we need to.
We need to get back on focus again. So thank you. Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you guys.
It's lovely chatting.
Good to see you all.
Another episode of Steel Talk with Eddie Lange. Thank you very much. Talk soon.
Yep.